بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The first verse I want to recite is chapter 2 Al-Baqarah, verse 177. لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين وآتى المال على حبه وذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة والموفون بعهدهم إذا عاهدوا والصابرين في البأساء والضراء وحين البعث. أولئك الذين صدقوا وأولئك هم المتقون. It is not righteousness that you turn your faces towards the east and the west, but righteous is the one who believes in Allah and the last day and the angels and the book and the prophets, and gives away wealth out of love for him to the near of kin and the orphans and the needy and the wayfarer, and to those who we ask, and to and those who ask, and to set slaves free, and keep up prayer and pays the poor rate, and the performers of their promise when they make a promise, and the patient in distress and affliction and in the time of conflict. These are they who are truthful, and these are they who keep their duty. Next one is the same chapter, verse 183. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyamu kama kutiba alal ladzina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you, and it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may guard against evil. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Some people translate that as righteous, become righteous, and so on. Tomorrow we start the month of fasting, Ramadan, which is the 9th month of the Islamic lunar year, and it holds profound, special, spiritual significance for Muslims worldwide. As you've seen from this verse that I recited, it's not righteousness that you turn your faces towards the east or towards the west. What does that mean? It means rituals are not what make you righteous. And then it goes on to say other things, first about belief and then about action, and gives away wealth out of love for Allah to relatives, to orphans, to anyone who's needy, and any wayfarer, any stranger who may be in need, and to those who ask, and to set slaves free. People say that slavery is permitted in Islam. If it's permitted in Islam, why is it that one of the highest qualities mentioned here is setting slaves free? And what are you doing? Giving away your wealth out of love for Allah. How? By setting slaves free and paying the poor rate. And most importantly, performers of their promise when they make a promise. People just say things and, oh, I just said it, this happened, oh, that happened. No, once you made a promise, it's binding. Ramadan is not complete until you've done all these things. It's a month of spiritual reflection and self-discipline. Sometimes it needs a lot of self-discipline to keep a promise. It's a time for Muslims to engage in deep spiritual reflection, self-discipline, and self-improvement. As I always say, you start school, first year in primary school, and then the following year you go into the next year, and then the year after that, and so on. But the hope is that when you start the second year, you would have learned and remembered what you were taught in the first year. Otherwise, how are you going to make progress? And if you don't make progress, how are you going to improve yourselves? So fasting is from before dawn to sunset. And that is the main central practice, which is to teach us self-control, patience, and empathy for those who are less fortunate. Going back to this verse again, give away your wealth. Why? Out of love for Allah. It's always all about caring for the less fortunate. You need to have empathy and compassion. There is a very good saying, there I would be, but for the grace of Allah, or grace of God. By experiencing hunger and thirst, Muslims are reminded of the struggles that the have-nots face, that the poor face, that the needy face. And it should foster empathy and encourage acts of charity like zakat and sadaqah to help those in need. It is sad to see that Ramadan has become or is becoming a month of showing off. There are parties, expensive parties, to begin individual days of fasting, and there are expensive parties to break the fast. Is this the purpose of Ramadan? To show off how much and how well you can eat, to start your fast and end your fast? There's a saying of the Holy Prophet Muhammad which says that your fasting will not be accepted by Allah unless you knock on your neighbor's door and ask him whether he has enough to break his fast. Do these iftar parties fulfill this objective? When the poor line up at outside the marquees and tents and so on, just to be able to smell the delicious foods that the rich are using to break their fast. It should strengthen our faith and our connection with them. It's supposed to be a time for increased prayer and recitation of the Quran and seeking forgiveness. You see, again, we go back to the verse that I recited just now. What happens is that people say, oh, why is so-and-so not here? Oh, he's fasting, so he must have gone to bed and he has to get up early and he has to say Tarawih and so on. But when you got a job, you made a promise that I'll work this many hours in return for this amount of money. Now, what does this verse of the Quran says? Keeps up prayer and pays the poor rate and performs his promise. Goes together. A few verses down, we then have fasting. But all of these things are together. Keeping up prayer, giving zakat and sadaqah, and keeping your promises. Sometimes people during Ramadan, you go to an office and they speak to you harshly. And you were told, oh, that's okay, make allowances. He's fasting. He had to get up early in the morning for his breakfast. He hasn't had anything to eat for lunch. But is he doing me a favor that I should show consideration that he's fasting? He should be learning self-control. But a part of self-control is not to shout at people and be rude to people and to turn up at work on time. It's an opportunity to strengthen one's faith and deepen one's connection with Allah through worship and devotion. But if you're shouting at people and not turning up for work on time and so on, you're not doing that. It's just showing off. And it should build community and unity. If you can share breaking of the fast or even starting the fast, because you have communal prayers and all that kind of thing. But this feeling of fraternity and unity will only be deepened and strengthened if you show people that you respect those with a different point of view. If a stranger comes into the mosque, you don't ask him, are you a Shia? Are you a Sunni? Are you a Wahhabi? What sect are you? What country are you? Do you raise your finger during your prayers, or don't you raise your finger? Do you say Ameen aloud, or do you say it quietly? How are these things relevant? If you think they're right, do them. But what right do you have to impose upon others? Because Ramadan should be about purification of your soul and renewal of your soul. And we should strive to cleanse our hearts and minds of negative traits that I've just mentioned. But in addition, things like anger, greed, envy, and develop positive qualities like generosity and kindness and gratitude. And we should also express and show gratitude and show appreciation. Recognize blessings from Allah and His innumerable favors. You know, there is a story that someone tells that a man was complaining about the fact that he had a old pair of shoes and they were leaking and letting in water, and it was cold and it was raining and so on. And while he complained, he saw another man who didn't have feet. And that is what we should do. Not complain about what we don't have, but show gratitude and appreciation for what we have. And think that there must be thousands and millions and tens of millions of others who don't even have what we do. We complain of only being able to afford one meal a day. What about those people who can't even afford that? And then we know that the Holy Quran, its revelation started during Ramadan, and it started on what's called the Night of Majesty, Laylatul Qadr, and it is believed that it's one of the 10 nights of Ramadan, and it is said it has special spiritual significance. And people have all manner of stories. Some people say, well, it's one of the last 10 nights of Ramadan. If you say 2 rakah prayers in that is equal to praying for 43 years. If you give a small amount of charity, that is equal to giving hundreds of thousands of pounds away. These are all human tricks, shortcuts. Islam and religion doesn't work. It's the sincerity of your devotions. Why should 5 daily prayers be compulsory when you can just pray for 10 nights? And that's the equal of having done all the prayers for 43 years. It's the intention. It's why you do something and what you want to gain. The story that I often tell from Tazkiratul Awliya that someone went to Hajj. When he was returning, he prayed, saying, I'm an old man, I won't have time to perform Hajj again. Maybe. Was my Hajj accepted? And the answer came no. And he cried and he said, was anyone's Hajj accepted? And he was told yes. And he asked to be shown the man and who he was and where he was, and he sought him out. And when the man opened the door, he embraced him and said, congratulations, your Hajj was accepted. Hajj Mabrur. And the man said, how could my Hajj be accepted? I didn't even go to Hajj. And they looked at each other. They said, you didn't go to Hajj? He said, well, I started off, but when I got to the end of the road, I heard children crying from a neighbor's house. So I knocked on the door. And this lady said, who opened the door, said, my husband died and we run out of money and they haven't had anything to eat since yesterday. And I've just put a pan on the fire and I'm saying to them, it's cooking, hoping eventually crying will tire them out and they'll go to sleep. And the man said, I gave up my idea of performing the Hajj. I went back home, put my stuff away, and then I went back and all the money I had saved up for Hajj, I gave it to that lady. I said, feed your poor children, feed your hungry children. So, oh God, there is a message in this for us, that we do so many things for show. But God says, the verse started, the first verse. It's irrelevant whether you turn your faces to the east or to the west. It doesn't matter what rituals you engage in to show off. It's the pureness of your soul and your heart that matter. So, overall, the message of Ramadan embodies spiritual growth, self discipline, empathy, and a renewed commitment to piety and righteousness. It is a time for Muslims to draw near to Allah, seek His forgiveness, and strive to become better individuals and members of the communities that they live in. And if you don't do that, all you're doing is merely going hungry. I was going to say, and that may mean you lose some weight, but the amount that people eat at Fajr and Iftar even precludes that. So all you end up with is gaining weight, making your diabetes and high blood pressure worse. And just think about that. If that is the physical effect of you not adhering to the teachings of Ramadan and what it should be, just think of the impact, the damage it does to your souls. بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم إنه تعالى جواد كريم ملك بر. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. اللہ اکبر اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ. حی علی الصلاۃ حی علی الفلاح قد قامت الصلاۃ قد قامت الصلاۃ. اللہ اکبر لا الہ الا اللہ. اللہ اکبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لتربن الجحيم ثم لتربنها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Astaghfirullah. Oh God. Thank you for joining us for today's Friday service. Ramadan Mubarak to everyone. And I pray that everyone gets an opportunity to fast during this month in the real spirit of fasting. Not my neighbor has held 20 fasts, so I must have 27 to outdo him. This negates the purpose of fasting. It should develop in your hearts love, empathy, consideration for the whole humanity, regardless of what anyone's religion, their nationality, their sect, their creed, color, etc. Next next week's Khutba will be the first one during Ramadan, with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep all of you safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafiz.